Greetings. Welcome to everyone on this Girls in ICT Day 2025. Considering that this is technology, before we go any further, can we have a sign that people can hear me, that people can see me? There we go. We have thumbs up. Well done. Brilliant. And thank you in advance to the team who have made this possible. Good people, greetings again. Welcome, like I said, to Girls in ICT Day 2025. My name is Hlekiwe Kachali, Senior Advisor Technology in UNICEF. On this day, casting my mind back to when I was an adolescent, I remember learning that 2/3 of the world is covered by water. Fast forward to 2025, I would say that it appeared that that final third is covered by some form of digital technology. This year, Girls in ICT Day is about girls in ICT bridging all divides for an inclusive digital transformation. If you look around us at the information that's available to us, the UN Economic and Social Commission for Asia Pacific talks about digital transformation as part of the socio-economic inclusion. The African Union has a whole continental digital transformation strategy. The European Union has declared an entire digital decade. What do all of these have in common? They're all talking about infrastructure, emerging technologies, skills, digital societies, digital public services, and data. Reading all these reports, all very positive sounding, one would be forgiven for thinking that all is absolutely well. On the other side of this, though, we're still talking about connecting the unconnected, reaching the unreached, and the gender digital divide. And then what about us? There's almost a feeling of us and them, depending on where one lives and what resources one has available to them. UNICEF data show that disproportionately in low-income countries, fully 90% of adolescent girls and young women aged 15 to 24 are offline. That gender digital divide that I mentioned falls along the lines, inversely though, of all of the grand plans that we have. It also talks about access. It's about accessibility, it's about availability, it's about skills, and it's about opportunity. Surely, this begs the questions, are we doing this right? Can we do it better? And what are those possible, plausible pathways for meaningful material impact in closing every order and every dimension of the digital divides? And to help me answer those and other questions today, I'm joined by a very esteemed panel. We have Ms. Jemima Kasongo calling us in from the Democratic Republic of Congo, youth champion, coordinator of YouReport in Lubumbashi. As a web fact checker, Jemima actively combats disinformation on social media and is actively committed to creating a positive and a very safe internet. We have Ms. Mariana Rozo-Paz, who leads the Youth for Our Data Future project at the Datasphere Initiative. Some of her work looks at understanding how responsible data governance frameworks can actually enhance inclusion in technologies such as digital identity, artificial intelligence, and extended reality. And then we have Ms. Selvaia Kauvaka, who may join us as we proceed in this webinar, who is a founder of Women in ICT in Tonga. I think you'll agree with me that these extraordinary ladies are harnessing the power of technology to drive social change, to empower themselves, to empower their communities, and to empower the rest of us. And if possible, later on, we'll be joined by Mr. John Omo, the Secretary General of the African Telecommunications Union, where he leads the continental body entrusted with building consensus within African countries in the development of ICT policies. And lastly, on this panel, but absolutely not the least, we have Ms. Belen Andrade, who is a digital child rights specialist with the UNICEF National Committee in Spain. And she's one of the coordinators of the recent report on the impact of technology on adolescents, and is currently collaborating on the development of the second edition of this research. If you will, with a show of hands, join me in welcoming this panel, as well as in welcoming everyone who's called into this webinar today. Brilliant. To start us off, Giovanni, I hope you're ready.
Yes, I am.
Could you pop up one of our first questions and we'll get the ball rolling and figure out how many in our audience have been following global activities? Good people, there is a question in the chat. You can vote now and we'll figure out how many of us have these numbers on Girls in ICT Day. Go ahead and vote, please. The question is, what percentage of adolescent girls and young women, especially in low-income countries, I see that the SG is here, are online? The correct answer to that actually is supposed to be 10%, is the inverse of what I said. And SG, if you would like us to give you the floor, please go ahead. Giovanni, I think I had seen a hand from the Secretary General. Yes, I have.
Yes, here it is, yes.
Brilliant. Perhaps his microphone and his audio need to be enabled?
Yeah, he can unmute himself now.
Brilliant.
Thank you very much. That's what I really wanted to confirm, that the disablement was not from my side but from your side. So let's go on. Let's go on with this. I'm happy that I'm able to speak and you can see me. Somehow I couldn't get it from my end. But good to see you guys. Good to see you guys.
Not a problem. You missed the part where we were saying very good things about you, but we'll say them again at the end, so you'll be fine.
I didn't miss it. I didn't miss it. I could hear you say a lot, but I couldn't just get my way around it. In fact, I knocked myself out twice just to see to test whether the problem was from my end or otherwise. But let's get on with it.
It was a challenge of connectivity and skills, apparently, the digital divide. But you're right, indeed.
Okay,
Let us proceed. And we have almost all of our panelists here now. And to start us off, to set the scene, to give us the broad strokes of what we want to talk about today, we are going to have Belen, followed by the SG, to set the scene for us. And what we would like to do is that the rest of the webinar is going to be about coloring in the picture of those broad strokes that they are going to use to lay the foundation. On that, I will give Belen the floor to give us a brief on setting the scene. Over to you, Belen.
Thank you so much. This is a great chance to share with all of you some of the findings we have from this report and this consultation we made with children and adolescents in Spain. It was very important after the pandemic, the COVID lockdown, to understand from a broad child's rights perspective how the connection was going amongst teenagers and young boys and girls, what aspects of their lives were being impacted through their presence in these different digital platforms, and what was the impact and how had it changed their relationships, their communication amongst them, amongst young people, and with society. So I'm going to show you a brief presentation. I hope if you see this, extends too much, can you please stop me so I can give the floor to other people to comment, and because I guess there are lots of interesting comments and in this dialogue, so I don't want to take too much time. I'm just going to share the presentation to give you some of the data that we are going to talk about. Let me see.
Can you see the slides, but not in presentation mode yet?
Do it now. Sorry about that.
Not quite in, yes, there we go. We have the first slide, and
Okay, hopefully you will see the full picture now. Is it
yes,
okay?
we can. Yes, please. Over to
Okay,
you.
so as I said, we wanted to share this perspective for understanding children's digital interactions and how it affects their online lives. So from a broad perspective, we are going to talk about access, how much access children have online in Spain. And it's also interesting to understand that access means inclusion, equality, experience, the kind of support they are getting to be online, and also so we can talk about the gender perspective. We're going to talk about protection, how much they feel safe, and how much their privacy is being exposed through online means. We're also going to talk about education, and in order to understand how to increase their education through online means, but also so children are better informed and can have the necessary skills to feel safe and be able to understand all the information that is being shared online. And also through the lens of participation, how much the environment, the digital environment is being a platform for sharing their worries, their needs, their experiences, and their connection with other young people. So this report was carried out, as I said, after the pandemic in 2021 with the participation of 50,000 children across Spain from 11 to 18 years old from 256 schools. And we are working on a new research with the baseline of this research, analyzing other aspects that have come up in recent years. To give you the characteristics of this report, we had a participation of 50% male and 48% female and 1% from other genders. And in terms of age, most of the participants were between 13 and 14 years old, and less so from 17 to 18. And from across the four secondary school levels. In terms of connectivity, in Spain, children have a universal connection to internet through their mobile phones at in these ages, between 11 and 18. And as you can see, 90% connect every day. And we can see a bit that connection increases with age, but even so, children from the age of 10 or 11 are equipped with a personal mobile phone, and as we can see, connection is almost universal. In terms of the use of internet, what are the main activities they do online? We see that it has a strong component on entertainment, but also connecting with their friends through WhatsApp or online messaging platforms, to listen to music, to be on social media networks. And in fifth place, we see to use the internet for homework. So this is to understand where they are, what their interests are to be online. To talk a bit about protection, which are the main worries they encounter online? So they tell us that they are online they have accepted strangers online, people they didn't know in person, and some of those contacts are a proposition, a sexual proposition from an adult that especially affects girls. And also we see, access to certain content involuntarily in some cases, when we talk about pornography, for example. And we see that these practices of having contact with strangers online increases with age. The next slide. So we are particularly worried, but also we focus on the main risks. Which aspects are affecting children online? So at an emotional well-being, we see that spending too much time without the guidance of an adult or a member of the family or a responsible adult can have increased the exposure to the main identified risks. And in terms of relationships, we also see that 1 in 3 teenagers could be suffering bullying, and 1 in 5 cyberbullying. However, there are certain attitudes that are not considered bullying because there are certain aspects of violence that are not considered as a violent act. So the perception of bullying is not so high as it should be. And in terms of civic participation, we see that sometimes the lack of information skills to find reliable resources put children and teenagers at risk.
Excellent. Did you want to go?
Sorry.
Should we perhaps go to the impact then, Belen, and then hand the floor over, and we can come back to some of this during the discussion. What do you think?
Yes. I was just going to say the importance of the role model of parents in translating these, the safe and healthy use of technology, the impact it has on their online practices, and also. I wanted to give you a brief context of the situation in Spain. With this data and this evidence, we were able to give this information to the government so they could develop special measures to protect children online. And also we have participated in a group of experts from different fields that have translated some of the most important issues that need to be tackled to translate it into an action plan. And as you know, there's a EU regulation specific on protecting minors online, which will contribute in all to tackling these issues and also making the industry more to create safer environments for children, taking into account age verification mechanism and all the other aspects that the technology developments can have to protect children. And I just want to finish by saying this, that by having this information through online means, through an online questionnaire, it's important that we have this advantage, that evidence of which things are going on in children's lives online that helps us understand another underlying cultural and gender issues or norms that need to be worked through an offline actions as well, in order to try to reduce those gaps in terms of gender and have girls to have more access to a safer online environment for participating. And that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Belen. And we'll definitely be coming back to some of these points that you are making on why are our young people online, what is it they're getting, what are the dangers, what are the issues, and it will be interesting to juxtapose that with the other parts of the world that we have present with us today. On that note, SG, we'll hand the floor over to you to help us to set the scene before we go into the Q&A.
Thank you very much, Madam Kachali and the team that is here. You can confirm reading me?
I can hear you. Can others hear?
Great. I'll fairly be very brief in my remarks. Thank you very much for having me here. I'm certainly delighted on behalf of the union, the African Telecommunications Union, to be part of this. I think sometimes we quite don't appreciate, especially for a continent such as Africa, the role that women play in our socio-economic life. And I do make fun that if you want to know and appreciate that role, get to any market in Timbuktu or Niger or in Nigeria, a market in a center, and you'll see the load that the African woman carries or can take in terms of weight, and then you do appreciate the enormity of the responsibility that the African woman has in terms of ensuring that the family is stable, the family is fed, the children go to school, and the responsibilities that are associated with the family. A recent study shows that 18 million girls, unfortunately, and I use the word unfortunately here because it's unfortunate, are out of school in Africa. And increasingly, many of our governments are spending less and less compared to the other regions, less and less in terms of education and education on girls. If you look at the per capita expenditure on education per child, and more so on the girl child, our numbers are not encouraging as African governments. And so that for me is a reminder that we must deal with efforts to ensure that more and more of our girls are in school, because therein then lies the problem. We have, if you take, for example, the workforce in Africa, 80%, upwards of 80% of the workforce in Africa comprise women, whether in the farm labor or in domestic chores and all that. And yet you have, that much number of women not in any proper or formal schooling system. And that then leads to a number of challenges. For example, illiteracy in terms of appreciating the ICT tools that I will mention shortly, or the unbanked in Africa, majority of whom are women. And so those prejudices, those challenges come from the fact that there are certain societal or family or prejudices that keep girls out of school, out of the formal education. That leads to these other challenges. If you take the mobile phone ownership in Africa, a great many and most Africans do access online content through the phone as opposed to other forms of access. 70% of African women do not own mobile phones, let alone smartphones. And this population is in the rural areas. And so upwards of 200 million African women remain offline for one reason or the other. Prejudices that started from not going to school all the way up to issues of relevant content for them. And so we must equip our women with the requisite literacy and knowledge to deal with these challenges. We must equip our governments and the bureaucracy in our systems with the need to see that these challenges are challenges of development, and that as long as 60% of our population are off the grid and not participating meaningfully in the economic development, then for that long, our countries cannot be said to be developing. And so this is the background, the challenge that I think we're dealing with. Of course, for those that are connected, you'll see that the safety online also affects and the nature of online challenges that the girls or the women in Africa face to do with their personality as individuals, to do with their sexual being as individuals. And so these are challenges that are existent that we need to face as a continent and deal with. And it would be nice that at some point during the Q&A session, we get some of these ideas coming up so that we can then develop and have a common understanding of how to deal with them. I know we are short of time, and so I want to end here, hoping that some of these issues will come up during the Q&A. Thank you very much, moderator.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. And we're hearing that there are some commonalities around those that do have, that can breach that first digital divide, which would be access, between the information that was presented by Belen and what SG OMA has presented around those who do have access. And then if we go now to the lower resource settings, as a generalization on the African continent, those who do not have access are also facing slightly different issues that come with not being able to have access, and that also has to do then with opportunities. Jemima, from that thread, you have the experience of being a young web fact checker, and the SG has talked about what is it that people can access online, and Belen made the same point. What personal insights can you share on the representation of young girls, adolescent girls and young women in how data, digital, and AI are governed?
Thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
In my environment, I have a big problem of connection, but I think that it will be okay for me. So I'm very happy to be with you to this big event. We are celebrate girls in high city. And I am a web fact checker. It is a program that I found at UNICEF that helped me to be a positive change maker online too in my community. And for me, I think that if we want to increase the representation of girls in technology and in other things like this, girls should have more things that can help them to, what can I say, to use technology in a safe environment. So it's very important to develop training that can help girls to be focused on digital and other things. Education is the things that will help girls to use technology very well, to manage it very well. And after this, it's very important to promote access to the internet and technology. Technology is a big challenge in Africa and in my country. For me to be here, to be connected like this, it was a big challenge. And I don't know if I will finish with you this session, but I trust. I trust. So it's very important to promote access to the internet and technological tools. It's very important. That will help to increase the representation of girls in technology. After, it's very important to teach girls how to use internet, social media, and other things. And it's very important to teach them how to what can I say, about cybersecurity. Yeah, cybersecurity and the ethic of artificial intelligence. We are in the world that we see every time new things come in technology, and the best way to prepare them to help us to increase the representation of girls is to teach girls about cybersecurity. It will help us to fight against online violence and false information. I am a web fact checker, and we are fighting against false information. It's because someone prepared me. And today I am fighting against this false information. If we do it, I think that the representation of girls in technology will be good. I think that I can tell. Yeah.
Brilliant, thank you. And Mariana, to bring you in, we have heard what we should do. Partly this is enhancing skills, as Jemima has put it. And we have also heard what kind of skills, including around foundational digital literacy as a start, but also to get into some of the more specific, say, cybersecurity. I would like you to take us through this from a different perspective in this case. Being with DataSphere, what are some of the key lessons you can impart to us or you have learned in how technology and data have actually supported your work?
Thank you, Hlekiwe, and thank you, everyone. And again, thank you for this invitation. So this is actually a very exciting conversation because I think that you're asking a very important question, which does not only have to do with the gaps that we're seeing and the digital gender divide that we know exists, but it also relates to the opportunities and the different ways in which girls around the world are literally leveraging technologies or leveraging access to data so that they can create their own projects and address the developmental challenges that they're seeing in their communities. So to give you some context, at the DataSphere Initiative, we're a global nonprofit think tank. And one of our big flagship projects is the Youth for a Data Future project. For the past 2 years, we have engaged over 15,000 young people from over 17 countries. And we've had a gender lens embedded in the project since the very beginning and since inception. And this means that we have not only focused on having conversations with girls and young women, but also with diverse populations, people that identify as queer within the LGBTQ plus spectrum. And that means that we've had really deep conversations with how people want to be represented in the data, and then the power of actually making sure that the whole data governance ecosystem is built around making sure that people are represented and that they can create value with the existing data. So it has been a wonderful journey, and what we're identifying is that girls are, for instance, and around the world, and I'm Colombian, and I'll speak about the Colombian case in a minute, but girls around the world are using digital technologies to create communities. So this is to come together, to learn from each other, to see what other girls in other parts of the world are doing. And we, within the project, we've done a series of Youth for Data Labs, which are spaces in which young people come together to also shape the ways in which they would like to see data governance evolving. And it has been brilliant to see how girls in particular have the most creative ideas when it comes to thinking about the potential of digital technologies, AI, and data to address developmental goals. And as you were mentioning at the beginning, one of the technologies that I've worked very closely with are extended reality settings. So these are the metaverse or virtual reality settings. And I am very close to a project here in Colombia in which girls have and are experimenting with how these specific technologies could help educate people and the citizenship in general around the experience that girls have on the street when they're catcalled. So all of these like violence schemes and dynamics that happen, for instance, in Latin America and the Caribbean. I'm Colombian and I grew up being catcalled since I was around 11, 12 years old. So these girls are leveraging the power of extended reality technologies so that they can educate citizens and people that have maybe not had the experience of being catcalled, so that they know and can empathize with that experience and start thinking about solutions to address real world concrete issues. So I feel that the most exciting thing to me about how girls are leveraging technologies is using them as means to address other systemic issues that they're facing in their communities. So that's definitely one very exciting part of it. And then the last example that I'll give is here in Colombia. There are various organizations, nonprofits, and girls-led initiatives that are also thinking about how to leverage their sexual and reproductive rights and protect their sexual and reproductive rights through AI systems and data-driven tools. So this is actually making sure that there are different apps or AI-driven solutions that can help people in general, and particularly girls, access information about sexual and reproductive rights, and about their health in general, and how to feel connected and learn more about that. So this is just like maybe a little snapshot of what we've worked on, and happy to keep going in the conversation.
Absolutely, thank you. And you brought us to what are the opportunities, what is the potential, but you've also made that link that sometimes isn't very clear, or that we don't really articulate clearly, in that child rights exist across the spectrum. They exist offline and they exist online. And also, is there really a separation between, especially now, an online life, if I can call it that, and an offline life? And I do believe that that's partly what Belen was presenting in juxtaposing bullying, as Mariana had called it, in the real world, and cyberbullying, which is happening online or in virtual spaces. SG, you had talked about safety as well, where we're aware that as we accelerate digital transformation initiatives, including AI, extended reality, and all the other technologies we get excited about, the benefits of availability, access, use, we've already said, do not accrue equally to all. And you gave us some very sobering statistics, actually. However, given the rapid pace of digital transformation and the discussion around the possibilities, the potential, the opportunities, supposedly if we do it correctly, how can we do it correctly? What are the opportunities that the ATU sees as pathways to bridging the gender digital divide? What are these practicalities?
Thank you very much for the question. I really appreciate. One is to appreciate that to appreciate the enormity of the problem, and I'm glad that you picked one of our young girls, from the continent, to speak about some of the challenges that from both the demand and supply side. One is to appreciate the enormity of the challenge, and to realize that from the access point of view, we cannot do business as usual. There have to be deliberate schemes at the level of government, both in terms of policy, regulation, and everyone that is involved in the ecosystem, to face the challenge and realize or appreciate that no country can develop while leaving that substantial portion of the population behind. Of course, the boy child still also experiences issues of access, but comparatively, it's not as pronounced as the girl child. And within the African continents, you'll see a number of transformational strategies on ICT, and most of our governments then now seek to focus their attention on the youth, including the girl child. But I see two approaches to the problem that we need to infuse in whatever programs or projects that we have. One is information. We must empower our communities with necessary information to know that a certain traditional or societal prejudices that kept the girl child off school are outdated and cannot be condoned in this modern day and times in which we live. And fortunately, a good number of our governments are doing this, and you find this more pronounced in the rural areas. And so that for me is the first approach to deal with the challenge. The second one, of course, then is to offer educational opportunities for women and girls to excel in this sphere. it's again, looking at our educational system, you find a lot more of the boy child than the girl child in getting opportunities in STEM subjects as opposed to girls. And we must have deliberate approaches to ensure that more and more of our girls get to face these challenges and are empowered, are encouraged, are mentored through these programs. At the African Telecommunications Union, we are working on a couple of approaches, including our African Innovation Challenge, where we get young people and we have special entries for girls in terms of how they can, bring up their innovative ideas, and we mentor them, we link them with various, angels or people who can handhold them through these initiatives. At the level of our work with the level with governments, we do encourage, and we have a couple of initiatives, whether for radio communications or standardization or development. A number of girls initiative for girls or women in ICT that encourage them to, form communities, agitate for their rights, recognize their presence in our meetings, and encourage them to keep coming. Give awards to governments that have, bring on board to our meetings and indeed other ICT meetings. Recognize those governments that, encourage the participation of women. And we've seen a number of positive changes where when you recognize, for example, a minister who has, for example, brought a number of lady delegates to a particular event, you recognize, and the following year they try to improve. So I think public recognition of the problem, public recognition of people who are making efforts to challenge the status quo is one way of achieving this particular challenge. And so I think there are multi approaches to the challenge, and there's no one right answer. Whatever we can do in our individual spheres, I think is important. African Union will not sit in any panel. Where there's no proper representation. And by proper representation, we've seen panels where there are only men, discussing women issues. It's for me a shame. And so we'll not sit or participate in any panel where there's no woman. And through that, you highlight the problem, you raise the profile of the issue, and people get to know that, yeah, this is wrong. This is wrong. And so those are some of the ways in which we seek to challenge the status quo as African Telecommunications Union. And we've seen a lot of our governments responding positively to the challenge. Thank you very much.
Indeed, it is sometimes about compelling people through means that they can actually feel, I think, is what you are saying. And you touched on policy, and Mariana, we have quite a lot of AI and data governance discussions, but also these are emerging topics all across the world. Many countries have strategies, have policies, many others don't. In either case, how do you see that girls could be connected to global digital policy, the discussions, the crafting, the implementation, the enforcement? How can we do that better?
Well, this is a huge question. I mean, kind of like the big question that I feel many of us are trying to answer. So I feel that one key component of this is understanding the life cycle of data governance and kind of like the ways in which technologies, particularly AI, are built that also have a life cycle, which means that we do not only need effective representation of girls in terms of, for instance, when data is being collected, so that then they're represented, hopefully, in all the diversity of their experiences in the data, but also so that they can be part of how we're defining how data is being used, for what purposes, in which contexts, if data will be deleted, and in which context will we be reusing, sharing that data, not only in terms of protecting their privacy, but again, in terms of value creation. So this is a very, very complex way of explaining things, but I feel that grounding the conversation in how data governance works is absolutely fundamental. And then in terms of how to engage girls in that kind of global governance process, first, I feel that we have mentioned skills and capacity building and the need for girls to have the information so that they can engage meaningfully in these conversations. But I feel that digital literacy goes way beyond thinking about girls learning how to code or how to use programming languages or effectively use a phone. It goes way beyond that, and it is in the end a matter of the very bad called soft skills. It's a matter of learning how to overcome imposter syndrome. It's a matter of creating communities and learning together. It's about teaching girls that ICTs is something that is theirs to shape and it's theirs to learn from. And if we do not have targeted capacity building programs that are focused on equipping girls with those leadership, communication skills, and social emotional skills to navigate the digital world effectively, but also to learn how are these technologies being designed and governed, and how can they meaningfully engage maybe in the conversation in their city, in their municipality, in their country, then it's going to be very hard to try to engage them at a global scale. So I feel that the key in this recipe, which is of course multifactorial, but is definitely education and skills and digital literacy in terms of social emotional preparation, so that girls have the skills to engage in these conversations, and so that they know that they belong in the digital world, not because they have done, and this is something that I keep repeating, a PhD in computer science, and hence now they can engage on how these technologies will be developed or governed, but it's actually because they come as they are. And when I say they come as they are, they come from the stories that shape them. They are engaging because they care about the specific technology that's being governed, because they have a very unique experience with that technology or have not had an experience with it and want to have one. So I feel that making sure that girls around the world know that they belong, and doing that via educational programs and capacity building programs that are not just focused on the hard coding programming skills that are needed, but also and really focused on the social emotional skills that they need to engage and participate fully as citizens in this digital world, that is absolutely fundamental. That's what I would say. And through our Youth for a Data Future project, we have also developed a very specific methodology to engage girls and young people in general in the conversation around data governance globally. So actually sharing their experiences with data and thinking about the opportunities of not only being represented in the data, but actually leveraging the power of data for value creation in their communities and to address the very specific challenges that they're facing in their local context. So that's what I would say.
But I would say we've spoken about education skills in a way also from the perspective or the point of view of those who, in this case, I will call users. Jemima, from your experience, again, we'll call on your experience as a web fact checker. On the other side of that, we have the platforms, we have the tech platforms. And yes, let's tackle that problem if we can. What would you say is the responsibility of the tech platforms, or are the responsibilities of the tech platforms in this upskilling, this enhancement, this safety, security, and this education that we're talking about? Because the user is one. Responsibility, I think, here can be distributed. What do you think is the role and the accountability and the responsibility of the tech platforms?
Do you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah, I can say for the companies that have platforms, it's very important to make clear rule that protects girls and men. I can say that girls too, but you know, platforms like Facebook, Instagram, and other, it is a place where we meet many person. Some person is there to do bad things, but it's very important to promote policies that keep girls safe. Girls' data, it's very important. So for me, for these companies, it's very important to make clear the rules and to practice it. To practice it, even if it is so complicated for other person to. Excuse me. Hola.
We can still hear you.
Okay. Excuse me.
That's
So
all
I
right.
will say that it's important to promote policies that keep girls' data safe, and they should have control over their personal information and know how to use it. That is what I can say. To developing online platforms that are safe for girls, it's essential. It includes measures that prevent online violence and ensure that girls is what can I say is work in a safe environment for the companies that are making platforms, tech and other.
Absolutely. Before the SG comes in, to everybody in the audience, A, the chat is open, and B, if you do put up your hand, we are able to unmute you and you can use the microphone if you want to ask your questions. Bezait, I hope that your questions were answered, some of them, in some of the conversation that has happened. SG, the floor is yours.
No, I just wanted to compliment what my colleague panelist my colleague panelist Jemima has said. Unfortunately, you know, technology companies are the owners of technology. Of course, the buck really stops with the user in terms of knowing what content to go for and what not to do and do in terms of maintaining their security. But I think, and this is the fortunate thing about artificial intelligence, that we are seeing increasingly technology companies applying tools that can, you know, through the use of artificial intelligence, you know, enable not just general or blanket security for young people or vulnerable people, but can target specific groups like the girl child. And so I think there's need for more of this to be seen. There's need for technology companies to go out there and work with you know, those in the ecosystem for public knowledge to have this information outside. And I think the more that this information is outside, the better for everyone, including technology companies. So I think we'll see a lot more of technologies that seek to protect the vulnerable groups, such as the girl child or women, for that matter. But of course, the other side is also working, those that seek to exploit people online. And so the technology companies will have an increasing role to play in this, not to underestimate the role of governments, the role of individual users in this regard. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mariana, you wanted to add something?
Yes, I briefly wanted to also mention that I feel that in terms of global governance and thinking about what John was mentioning, the role of technology companies, but then also the role of educators and governments, even policymakers, I feel that one key message that I'd like to share and kind of opportunity that I see is really the need to bring all of these stakeholders together. And when I say key stakeholders, it's not only the adults in the room, but it's the girls, it's the young people, so that we can all collectively try to address these issues in a way that's much more agile and iterative. And one key tool that I'd like to share is the role of sandboxes, which are experimentation settings in which one can experiment with technology, with regulation, with policies. And I feel that rethinking the way in which we're doing policy and adopting a much more agile, collaborative mindset is what will ultimately lead us to creating technologies and guaranteeing representation of children and girls in the data. So I just wanted to share that I feel that we really need that mindset shift so that we can ensure that as we move forward, we also bring all of these actors together to collaborate and rethink the ways in which we've been designing technologies and governing them.
All right. Belen, as we start to inch closer to the closing of the webinar, and you're right, SG, that we never have enough time for these discussions, especially when it comes to proposing solutions. And I'd like to see some solutions in the chat. I've seen one or two, but I haven't seen that many. Belen, we are talking about responsibility, apportioning responsibility, who's accountable for what, and we're also talking about legal instruments and mechanisms all over the place, depending on what part of the world you sit in. Europe has some very developed mechanisms. If we bring it to Spain, how would you say that young women and girls can be engaged in shaping digital policy? We'll give you about a minute.
Yeah, I think I take from all of my colleague panelists that it is important to have all the aspects covered because it's not only a question of access, as we know in Spain, the access is quite high. But on the flip side of that, more girls are exposed to more harm because they spend a lot of time online, but they are also exposed to this situation that some of them affect girls more than boys. So in order to make changes, it is important for all rights to be respected, to be acknowledged, and to be a reality online as well. So in order for more girls to participate and to have a stronger voice or a stronger participation in shaping the digital future, it is important to change being aware of the harms. Try to tackle those specific harms that are affecting girls more, and so creating safer environments where their contribution will be heard and will be possible, and we will have more of it. Once we understand that at the same time as we work and keep access to technology, we also have the chance and include in regulation and in laws the protection from different forms of violence that, as I said, have to be worked not only in the online world but also outside of the online environment, and working at the same time with necessary skills to participate. But I guess education has to go hand in hand with protection, with data protection, and with avoiding the data profiling and all those aspects that put in danger, having a more open and safe space and platform for girls in particular to put their contribution and to change the situation.
Excellent, thank you, Belen. And if I summarize what most of us are saying, is that it takes a village to tackle this problem. And as we approach 2030, we've heard the numbers, we've seen the bar graphs. The reports are indicating that we are not, it's seemingly investing enough in children, or is it that we're talking about too little too late and that it isn't equitably distributed? At the same time, we're saying that digital and data are part of the solution. They offer us opportunities, and they also offer us opportunities to overcome the challenges. And what I see in conclusion, I would say that we have a multiplicity of possible futures before us, and it is up to us to decide what future we want. And in this, we need to meaningfully include our young people like Mariana and like Jemima, who then also need to go and camp in the Secretary General's office to specifically check what policy and legislation is being discussed with different countries that includes them, that protects them, and that is for them. On that note, I'd
Actually,
like yes.
I would really be grateful if you could link me with
Jemima.
With Jemima. Yeah, I'd
Absolutely.
like to engage a bit more in terms of what she does and how we can support. Thank you very much.
Absolutely, we can absolutely do that. We'll do that on the back end of this one. And on that note, I'd like to thank the panelists. I know we didn't have enough time and there was plenty more to say, but this has been a very rich discussion, including some of the comments and some of the questions that came from the audience. We will send out the resources that went into putting this webinar together. We have your email addresses. We promise not to spam you, but we'll send the information to you. And if you do want to reach out to us and contact us and hear more, as Karina has already put information in the chat around data governance, let us know, write back to us, let us know, and we are happy to continue this engagement. On that note, all that remains is to thank everyone, wish everyone a wonderful the rest of your day wherever you are, and see you on the 10th of June when we talk about responsible data for children. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Thank you.